Okay, so this is chapter 2, part 2. But, the other continued, my father misses the soul, and I can understand. Once last spring, we went through the land gates to the village of Zengyai. There were fields of rice and mustard, and on the paths, grass. It was good to look at and very clean. Someday I hope to cross the great river to the hills. From their highest points, it is said, one can see long distances, even to the provinces of Kwaichou and Yunnan. But that naturally is on a day when the sky holds no cloud. Young Fu warmed to this companion. They moved aside to flatten against a compound wall that 2 sedan chairs might pass in the narrow street. The 2 passengers were gentlemen of wealth, and as they recognized each other, fans were raised hurriedly before their faces in greeting. The ceremonies attendant on stopping would have required some time, and by this gesture each indicated courteously that he was in a great hurry. The sedan chairs having passed, the boys once more swung into step. Where do you now dwell? Asked Li. On Chairmaker's Way. My family lives on Chicken Street, but I, of course, share the coppersmith's roof. You will sleep next to me, I suppose. No, my mother is alone, and this morning she asked the master if I might return to keep her company each night. That is not the custom. Small Li's eyes were wide with surprise. But then Tang's payments to the Brass Workers Guild are so large that it is easier for him than most to arrange things to his own liking. He sighed. I am sorry. Den is a poor companion. He wishes to forget he is still an apprentice, and his ears are only for the men. So that means the other little kid, right, that's their age, doesn't want to be an apprentice, and so he just hangs out with the men and isn't really kind to them. Young Fu thanked him for his friendly advance. He was moved to frankness. Den, I think, will not regret my absence. Small Li threw him a questioning glance. So this early he vented his bitterness, did he? A member of his house, a cousin, wished to become Tang's apprentice. The coppersmith would not consider him. It was bad fortune enough to have one in his shop like Den. He did not wish a second. I myself heard him say it. Den will not soon forgive you for filling the place. When they re-entered the store late that afternoon, Young Fu felt braced to meet anything. One in this place was his friend. The others did not matter. As they appeared, Tang called out, Did you enjoy yourselves playing about this afternoon, or can it be that the customer has moved? Small Li bowed with a grin. Noticing his companion's confusion, he waited until they had reached their rear, and then told him, Tang is always like that. His tongue is sharp and his wit worse than old Sue's. But he does not beat his apprentices, and that is a great blessing. My cousin, who works for a tanner, bears scars from the bamboo strokes, and for no reason but that he placed a skin with a tear on a pile of perfect ones. That Tang had another side to his character, Young Fu discovered later. At dusk, the coppersmith beckoned to him. You need not remain to finish tonight. The ways of this city are new to you, and your mother will carry a heavy heart until you return. Do you know the direction to Chairmaker's Way? The youth nodded. Then follow it without delay. His eyes held a kindly expression, and through the devious turns that led him home, Young Fu remembered it. The light was still dim when he arrived at the shop the next morning. Lanterns suspended from the ceiling softened the brasses to a satiny sheen, and Young Fu was held for a moment by the beauty on display. His pride increased. These objects were the work of men who had at one time started as apprentices. In time, he, too, would be permitted to do something more than tend fires and run errands. Small Den's challenge broke the spell. Did you never see a piece of brass before, countryman? Young Fu's countenance hardened. This morning was not yesterday. Coolly he faced his antagonist. If I have not, is it your affair? Aye, exclaimed Den, turning to the accountant for appreciation. His temper is easily fired. Tang, suddenly appearing, took the conversation into his own control. As is mine when I see the dust still thick when you have left it. Small Den began to whisk furiously at the offending tables, and the other boy lost no time in applying himself to the fire. Twice his enemy had lost face in his presence. This would be something to remember for future consolation. Also, his first opinion that the coppersmith myth nothing was being momentarily proved. Whenever Tang was needed at the moment, there he was to be found. No smallest detail of the work escaped him, and he gave the impression of being in all 3 rooms at once. There was nothing he did not know about his craft. A hint from him saved a sheet of metal from an unnecessary degree of heat. A stroke of his thumbnail hastily corrected a weak line in a design. Under his suave influence, customers who the clerk was unable to interest would invariably buy. When Tang was in the store, old Sue would chuckle. There is no better bargainer in the city than the master. Never does he follow a patron into the street. Always they tug at their money bags before they leave this place. I've seen his competitor, Wu, a half li from his shop, trying to persuade a reluctant buyer to return and purchase, and the men would acknowledge the truth of these statements. Tang, though he demanded the utmost in effort and artistic achievement from his workmen, held them respect. He wasted none of his suave manner on them. He was blunt, and his tongue could flay like a whip, but Young Fu soon recognized the fact that the coppersmith was just in all of his dealings, and no artisan in Chungking gave better quality of work for value received. From sunrise to nightfall, the new apprentice had no free minutes except those stolen from errands. The workrooms were a bedlam of noise, hammers beating against anvils, chisels screeching their way into designs, voices calling out, tongs clattering beside the fire, and the oven, stretching out long tongues of green and gold flame, added its contribution of soot to the blackened figures of the journeymen, and recalled to Young Fu's mind pictures he had seen of the realms in which evil spirits dwell. His thoughts of evil spirits became vividly real one afternoon as he squatted in the middle room and polished a brazier which a workman named Zen had just finished. Through the doorway, he watched coolies lower an open sedan chair from which a tall, strangely dressed person stepped out. The apparition, which is sort of almost like a ghost, sauntered into the store, and Young Fu stopped his work and gazed open-mouthed. It was a foreigner. In the weeks of living in Chungking, he had not yet been close to one. Occasionally he saw them at a distance, but they were usually so well hidden by the inquisitive crowds that always accompanied their appearance that he still had no idea what they were like. Tang took immediate charge of the stranger, and the clerk and Den rushed about displaying goods. Young Fu turned to the journeyman beside him. "Is that a man?" Zen laughed. "Truly, you are from the country. Have you never seen a foreigner before?" "Not so close. And if it is a man, even you will agree that he wears the jacket and loose trousers of a woman." All of the men dress in this fashion, and these women clothe their bodies in men's skirts. Everything they do is the opposite of accepted custom. The women all have feet as large as coolies, and they go about, even the young ones, in open chairs that expose their faces and gaze to the gaze of the world. The shoes they wear have thin pegs under the heels to make them taller, I suppose, though high heaven knows they are ungainly enough by nature. And their hair flies loosely about their faces, and they laugh and talk as freely as a man. But they are as all other barbarians. They have no polite rules of conduct, and we of the Middle Kingdom can feel pity. The boy listened attentively, but his eyes never left the figure in the store. The foreigner moved restlessly about the room, pointing out objects with a long stick and refusing to sit down and drink tea, which is what any Chinese gentleman would have done in the same circumstances. "I like not his face," Young Fu told the journeyman. "The skin is white with bristles and resembles a poorly plucked fowl, and his nose is twice the size it should be." Zen went on with his work. "I felt the same about the first one I saw. When he opened his mouth to smile, he was so ugly. I thought it would kill me. But I am used to them now, and while I see no good in them, I do not believe with the women that they caused bad fortune. Indeed, they are too stupid for any sensible man to fear. With money they are fools, paying coolies for every service twice what they ought to receive. But they are rich, and silver means nothing to them. They have met every meal, it is said, and the choicest vegetables and fruit, even the poorest among them, lives like a mandarin." The foreigner, who showed no particular interest in the objects before him, was attempting to explain his dissatisfaction to Tang. Young Fu strained to hear, but nothing reached him above the usual uproar of the room. "What language does he speak?" he asked Zen. "English, and some of the words of Chinese, I suppose." "Does Tang understand English?" "No, but what the fellow cannot say in Chinese, the coppersmith will guess." Tang came swiftly toward them. "With such industry in an apprentice, my fortune is made already," he remarked wryly in passing. Old Su called out, "Does nothing suit your rich customer?" "Nothing in this store. He wishes a finer piece to send as a gift to his friend in America." "He shall see the best that we have." The master moved to a large chest, pulled the key from his belt, inserted it in the triangular hanging lock, and lifted the lid. Young Fu's hands moved rhythmically over the surface of the brazier, but stolen glances told him everything. He had noticed that chest many times, but he had paid little attention. That shopkeepers did not show their finest stock in the open store was news to him. Tang beckoned. "Wipe your greasy hands and carry these to Den." At the partition to the outer room, the youth halted. Fu Baba's warning about foreigners returned to him in full force. Suppose evil should fall on him as a result of being close to this creature. His skin prickled, then he moved forward. Evil was certain to follow if he made Tang angry by not obeying orders, and the unknown seemed the lesser of the two. He gave the articles carefully to Small Den. On his third return to the inner room, a voice called after him, "Tell your master I wish to hurry." Startled, Young Fu glanced over his shoulder. That had been the foreigner speaking. He could not believe his own ears. He himself knew no English, so the man must have used Chinese words. In a daze, he repeated the message to Tang. Always these foreigners must hurry, remarked the coppersmith. They waste good time studying their watches. They hasten to earn money and hasten to spend it. Why then trouble to gain it? Careful spending increases riches. Old Su was now helping Tang to choose from the hidden treasures. His hurry will be to your advantage, he said. He will not linger over the bargaining. Carrying a tray and jar, Tang and the apprentice strode toward the customer. In a moment, the latter had selected the tray and asked its price. Young Fu was amazed at the stupidity of such course. Even a child knew better than to let a merchant guess which purchase pleased him most. One pretended interest in everything else and asked the price only after the storekeeper had, himself, centered attention on the article desired. Tang mentioned a sum at which young Fu caught his breath. The foreigner looked up quizzically, then offered half the amount. Tang raised it to 3/4 of the original, and the other man met this compromise with 1 2/3. He accompanied the last figure with action. His hand drew from a slit in the side of his trousers, a queer place indeed to keep money, several silver dollars. They were accepted. Small Den wrapped the gleaming tray in the tissue paper and carried it to his chair. With a nod, the foreigner was gone. That night, on Chairmaker's Way, young Fu told his mother, "Today, a foreign man bought a tray in our store. He did not see you, I hope." "He did. Tang told me to carry brasses into his presence. Also, he spoke to me." At his mother's exclamation of fright, he reassured her. "Do not fear. He was ugly, but harmless." "When did you acquire such wisdom? Already you copy these city people. You are like a man who sits at the bottom of a well and boasts about his knowledge of the world. No one is wise save those within the walls of the brass shop. But in the country we still know a few things, and one is that foreign barbarians should be avoided. But do you wish me to disobey Tang's orders?" No reply came, and rolling in his pugai, her son fell asleep. And that is the end of chapter 2. And there's just one question on the sheet here that I thought I would share. It says, Fu Baba's mother would buy clothes on Thief Street for the stolen goods were more affordable. What does this say about Chinese society at this time? And I would love if you would answer that question in a comment to me. So what does it say that the mother was actually, like there was a whole street where stolen goods were acceptable? Please go ahead and answer that for me.